Good morning, everybody. I'm Rabbi Michael Safra, privileged to be a rabbi here at B'nai Israel Congregation, and I'm very happy to welcome all of you here to this program sponsored by the JCRC. It feels a little bit like a family affair because B'nai Israel is one of the synagogues in the area that David Trone and June Trone consider their home synagogue, and we feel blessed by that. But this is not about the family relationship. We are hosting this program as part of a series that the JCRC has been doing, inviting each of the candidates for U.S. Senate to come and have an opportunity to address the Jewish community, to speak, and to also have give and take. We are so grateful to be in the neighborhood near the JCRC. We are grateful for the work the JCRC does as kind of the relations outfit and a mouthpiece for our community. And it's a privilege for me both to welcome you and then to introduce Ron Halber, who's going to introduce Representative Trone.
Thank you, Rabbi Safra. Good afternoon. My name is Ron Halber, and it's my privilege to serve as the Executive Director of the JCRC of Greater Washington. And I want to thank everybody for joining us here previous for our little lunch, and for everybody who's joined us in the community. And for those of you who are live streaming, the wonders of modern day technology. Just want to let everybody know this is on the record. So if the media wants to ask questions, we're on the record. We thank B'nai Israel and Rabbi Safra for their hospitality, and for everybody joining us here to hear from United States senatorial candidate Congressman David Trone, as he seeks to become the next U.S. Senator from the great state of Maryland. This is our final program in a series of JCRC forums held with major candidates for the United States Senate for Maryland. Okay, my lawyers make me say the next sentence. Please note, and you can see I'm saying this under duress, the JCRC is a tax-exempt 501c3 organization and is prohibited from participating in political campaigns or endorsing candidates for office. Okay, now we can get to the interesting stuff. Okay. The Jewish community has always enjoyed a warm friendship and partnership with Congressman David Trone. He's been a national leader highlighting the link between substance abuse, mental health, and the criminal justice system. He passed legislation providing over $9 billion to fight substance abuse disorder and 26 laws to address this public health crisis. He's also been a staunch supporter of common sense gun control legislation and led the fight to pass the Safer Communities Act, the most significant gun reform legislation in a generation. He's a staunch supporter of reproductive freedom and personally supported the establishment of a reproductive health clinic so women in Western Maryland and West Virginia would no longer have to travel for hours for health care. His other efforts include leading criminal justice efforts to reduce recidivism, expanding funding for higher education, protecting our environment, investing in jobs and economic development, ensuring voter access, and ensuring that the LGBTQI community is protected and can live free from fear and discrimination. Congressman Trone has been an ardent supporter of the State of Israel and the U.S.-Israel relationship, and has always publicly and without any equivocation, publicly, loudly, and certainly condemned anti-Semitism. He is the founder and co-chair of the bipartisan Abraham Accords, which identifies collaborative opportunities to build on the Accords and to create opportunities for working together between the United States, Israel, and its Arab allies. And just recently, a week and a half ago, voted to provide Israel with $15 billion in military assistance. Congressman Trone has joined us twice at the JCRC's Qatari rally to demand that they use their influence to free our hostages and to bring our people home. He's been an advocate of providing dollars to Jewish institutions for security and social services, and he was also ranked as the fourth most bipartisan member in Congress. And it's now my pleasure to introduce Congressman Trone.
Good morning, everybody. It's certainly great to see the American flag and the Israeli flag flying together. Okay. I always like to note in front of my office in Congress and Rayburn, they both fly in the hallway together. And that sends a pretty clear and distinct message. So it's always great to be here at B'nai Israel. Thank you, Rabbi Safra, for hosting us today, and thanks to the JCRC for giving us this opportunity to be here. I especially want to thank my friend Ron Halber for always making sure We're welcome, and we really appreciate the time we spent together at the Qatar embassy and calling for our hostages release and continuing to advocate and protest together. So I'm honored to be with you here today. As many of you know, I am a Lutheran, and my wife and all 4 children are Jewish. And my wife, she would like stand up and say hello. Yeah. And Jude is also a member of the JCRC board here. So we're very pleased. And in fact, this is one of our 2 temples that we attend on different occasions. I saw Rabbi Jack Luxembourg here also. Where's Jack at? There is our first rabbi ever. We first moved here, how many decades ago, Jack? Like 5. Anyway, my wife and all 4 children are Jewish. So this is incredibly personal and important to each of us. Our nation's relationship with Israel and Israel's relationship with the rest of the world and the rising threat of anti-Semitism in America and abroad, they need our unwavering support. It's vitally important that we all stand together. Supporting Israel's right to exist and thrive and helping improve their relationship with other nations has been a central part of our work here in Congress. But I don't just want you to know where I stand. I want you to know who I am and why these values are so important to my family. I've been incredibly lucky in life. I founded a business that I built from nothing into now the largest retailer of wine and spirits in the United States. We're also the largest retailer of Israeli wine in the United States. It's my good fortune that the hard work has allowed us literally to live the American dream. As you may have heard, we're largely financing the campaign with our own money. Money that my family and I worked hard to earn. I decided to finance my campaign because I knew it was an investment in making this world a better place for my children and my grandchildren. I'd like to pause here to say happy birthday. My first grandchild today is 2 years old, Chase. Happy birthday, Chase. I'm driven to serve by a phrase many of you know well, Tikkun Olam. How do we repair this world? That's what has moved me to public service, not a politician. I hate that word. We're a public servant, and that's where we have to be focused and driven. But let me tell you where we started. When we're fortunate to have a lot of success now, it was a slow success. And I mean very slow at some times. When I decided to found my business after my family literally lost everything when I was 28 years old. My father was ironically an abusive alcoholic. And eventually that led our farm into bankruptcy. My siblings and I, my mother, we lost everything, including the house and the bedrooms that we literally slept in. So I took out student loans, went back to school at the Wharton School of Business, University of Pennsylvania. And that's where I met my wife, June, who's here today, of course. And I supported my family brokering eggs. And I opened a small store, I mean probably 3 times bigger than this room, not very big, selling beer and soda in a tough part of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It was then I decided, it's not where I decided to build our business, but it's not because we ever thought we would just get rich. We were just trying to figure out how to survive. We literally built the check stands out of 2x4s and plywood. I painted them yellow. I thought it was sharp. We built the beer cooler, my brother and I did, out of plywood and 2x4s. We didn't have money for a sign on the outside of the building. We just painted beer and soda warehouse. We had one good idea: sell things cheap. Total Wine & More has always been a discounter. That's what we do. So we started slowly succeeding by putting everything that we made back into the business. My wife had to make a lot of sacrifices for us to succeed. She spent her life filling in when I often missed out. I'm sure it wasn't easy for my mother-in-law to accept that her beautiful daughter had fallen for a Lutheran farm boy who had grown up cleaning chicken manure and shoveling chicken manure, and I'm being very clear about that. We got 13 tons of chicken manure a day. They eat 13 tons of food, and you get 13 tons of manure. And we did a lot of terrible things. When I asked my wife, June, to marry me, she only had one rule: the children must be Jewish. Looking back on that now, it's a promise that I'm eternally grateful that we kept. While I may not be Jewish, the solace and the community that I found is very precious to our family. Many of our fondest memories are tied to our family's faith. While I'm here today to speak about political campaign and the important policy questions, I want to be very clear to each of you. I meant it when I say this is personal. This is personal to me. The people in this room understand that is something that's too often overlooked. The rising anti-Semitism that exists across our nation and across the globe. This isn't new. Jewish Americans and Jews have dealt with hate speech and violence for centuries. And much like the hate and violence the communities of color across this country have been forced to endure, it's too often ignored by our elected leaders, even by our neighbors. The senseless attack at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh in 2018 was particularly painful for our family. Many years ago, we were living in Pittsburgh, and some dear friends of June and I sponsored our family, so our daughter Michelle could be given her Hebrew name at the Tree of Life Synagogue. It's a day we'll never forget, and to know that such a sacred place has been a source of joy and community for families like mine could be victimized by a senseless act of terrorism. To know that for decades and generations after the Holocaust, Jews across the globe are still being targeted by hate speech, and violence is often too much for all of us to bear. So when I was elected to Congress, I devoted much of my time to being part of the solution. Before we go any further, I want to be crystal clear about one thing. I stand before you today saying loudly and clearly that I want to help build a meaningful and lasting peace for Israelis and Palestinians alike. But to have peace, people must have hope. And we can't have hope if we don't fully and completely eliminate Hamas. Some people may tell you I'm wrong, but sometimes people oversimplify. They think I'm oversimplifying a complicated problem, but sometimes it's just simple. Hamas is a terror organization that cares about one thing: the extinction of Jewish humanity across the globe and the destruction of the state of Israel. They're willing to do anything to achieve their goal, from killing innocent Israelis to victimizing the very Palestinians that they claim to fight for. They must be stopped. The hostages who have been victimized must be reunited with their families, period. I also believe we need to root out the hate and the violence terrorizing Jews across this globe. But we cannot have a ceasefire if Hamas does not cease firing. And there can be no ceasefire without a full release of all of the hostages. This afternoon, we're going to get an update at 2 p.m. from the Egyptian ambassador to myself and a few others about the status of the current negotiations. So, since our first step in de-escalating this conflict and any horrific violence that we're seeing has to be always getting these hostages released. And we need to act swiftly, then to build a global effort to dismantle Hamas so the region can have a hope for peace. I'm proud to serve as co-chair, as was mentioned in the Abraham Accords Caucus. We've been working to lay the groundwork to improve diplomatic and business relationships between Israel and the rest of the Arab world. We've increased tourism, over 2 million people, and trade, and help these nations share their cultures and their stories with each other. But we need to double down on this critical work. Because to begin to rebuild Gaza and to give Israelis and Palestinians alike a shot at a peaceful future, we need the Arab world to play a bigger part. We need them to pay their fair share, especially Saudi Arabia. This is a global crisis, and it needs a global solution. We need to rebuild Gaza and give that region the hope for a lasting peace, but we need to guarantee the safety and security of Israel for another generations and generations. We can never forget that Israel isn't simply a nation. It isn't just some place on a map. It's an enduring symbol of hope, a beacon that shines brightly to tell us that despite the struggles that we encounter and the challenges we face, we can repair the world. That's why we ran, to stand with Israel and fight back against the anti-Semitism tearing this world apart. But we also have to stand up to Big Pharma and the special interests who are putting profits over people. And to give people like my nephew Ian, who he lost to a fentanyl overdose, access to life-saving treatment. And to give people like the members of my family who struggle with mental health the high-quality care they need by not taking money from Cigna, taking money from Pfizer, who just drives medical costs higher. And to give returning citizens the education opportunity they need to turn their lives around. My company alone has hired 1,400 returning citizens. We're working with big companies, Amazon, Target, Walmart, UPS. All these big companies want to help returning citizens get a second chance. And they all have good jobs available in 50 states. So we need to work with the Bureau of Prisons, which I work with as an appropriator, to appropriate their funds through our subcommittee that oversees that. So we can drive dollars to the Bureau of Prisons to train people for jobs, give people the education. So when they come out, they have a successful life. Because we know if folks come out, 8% is recidivism if they have a job. Virtually all succeed. 75% is recidivism if they do not. And given there's 2.3 million people incarcerated in America, we are the world's jailer. 30% of all the women in the world that are incarcerated are in America. Yet we're 4.3% of the population. It's 25% for men. So if we can give folks a chance, a second chance, like I got when I was cured from cancer, a second chance. That second chance everyone deserves. And if we could just do that, think about the crimes that would never happen. 2.3 million people coming out, just look at the numbers. That means there's 2 million less crimes. 2 million, because we gave folks a second chance. I believe these things because I've seen them myself. They work. I know how it is to struggle. I know how it is to fail. But let me tell you this, years after we lost the farm, my father came back to me and he was finally ready to move on from alcoholism and turn his life around. He just didn't know quite how. So we stepped up, got him into a 28-day program, and with a lot of hard work, a lot of AA meetings, and drinking together a lot of bad coffee, he got clean. And he came back and worked for me until he died of Alzheimer's. He remarried and had 5 children. 3 of those now work for me. He got to see his children succeed, and he got to have a real relationship with his grandchildren. So I believe in repairing the world. It starts with your family. It goes out to those in addiction, goes out to those struggling with mental health, goes out to those in a criminal justice system that deserve that second chance. It goes out to those by investing long-term into thinking about medical research, where we get a 7-to-1 return on our investment, spending money to save thousands of lives. And it goes out all about education, because we get education right, investing in our children, that's the future. And of course, the environment at the end of the day, if we don't get the environment right, we've got nothing. So that's the most existential issue that we're facing. But most importantly, I hope you're considering honoring me with your vote, because this is all what Communal means to me. We have to beat Larry Hogan. The polling shows I'm the only person that can beat Larry Hogan. We cannot have Larry Hogan in the U.S. Senate. He will absolutely stop our ability to do all the things we just talked about in education, in addiction, in mental health. And of course, we just saw the Republicans who held up in the House for months with their intransigence, their inability to come together, the Israeli aid bill. We can't move to help Israel unless we're united. So most importantly, I hope you'll give me the chance and the honor to continue to be a public servant, repairing the world, leave this world a better place for my kids, your kids, our grandchildren together. It's the mission we're all on. We're on a mission here. We're on a calling. We're not here for a job. We don't need a job. We're here on a mission to change things in a better way for a lot of folks that just don't have a voice. They've been left behind because often the special interest, they have the voice, and their voice isn't helping those that are struggling in addiction, mental illness, not having the education, not having the second chance. So I hope you'll join us, and thank you for your time and for the ways this congregation has been there for our family and touched our lives. Thank you.
So thank you, Congressman, for your remarks. We have until noon for questions. If you are a member of the media and you're asking a question, that's fine, but please identify yourself. So we'll start here, and please feel free to ask whatever you wish. Sir.
Yeah, a couple years ago, I retired as a pain medicine doctor. I practiced that for 36 years. I had not a single patient become addicted to narcotics. One of the things I understand that you've really pushed for treatment of addiction. One of the things that I'm really interested in is new approaches to preventing addiction in terms of educating physicians, in terms of regulating fentanyl. Fentanyl, which is not an opiate, it's a synthetic. It's the most fat-soluble of all the opiates. So once a patient gets started on it, it can take months to get them detox from it. So we need some new approaches to educating the medical profession and to educating patients about the problems associated with the use or the inappropriate use of narcotics.
First of all, thank you for that. I agree wholeheartedly with everything you said. Fentanyl is 50 times more powerful than heroin, and it costs 30 times less to make. It's a dream drug for the two cartels that make this product coming out of Mexico, the precursors from China. I was appointed by Speaker Pelosi and ended up as co-chairman of a commission where we spent a year and a half studying with the Rand Corporation how fentanyl travels from precursor China to Mexico, here at the border. It was bipartisan. Tom Cotton was the other co-chairman, and we had all the parts of government, Treasury, DOD, ONDCP, everybody. And we came up with basically, we need to stop the demand side because the cartels are so strong, so powerful, and the Mexican government has an impossible chore, literally, with 1/3 of the Mexican GDP controlled by cartels. It's an impossible job. We have to stop the demand on this side, and it's a lot of different things. Education is a big part of that. Understanding that one pill can kill, as the DEA's new motto is, where people can see that a Adderall, a Percocet, any type of a pill that you get, a Valium, if it didn't come from Walgreens or CVS, it's probably made by the cartels. And it really is simply fentanyl, 2 or 3 little drops, milligrams, and then filler. And that's all it is. And it's there to hook you. And that's where so many of our children and young people are dying now. We had the head of the FBI in to testify for our appropriations committee. His estimate was over 200,000 would have been dead if it were not for Narcan. So Narcan we have to have everywhere. We just passed a bill last year from MAT to use buprenorphine, a drug to treat the addiction. Got rid of the X waiver to make that easier. We have recovery housing bill, which we just passed last year, not to mention the $9 billion in state opioid response grants. But we need an all-government approach. This isn't a $9 billion program. It needs to be a $100 billion program. Look what we did for COVID. We lost 1 million to COVID. Well, we've lost 1 million to overdoses already, and between 2020 and 2029, we'll lose another 1 million. This will be twice as lethal as COVID, and yet we're not doing enough work on it. It's the #1 issue in America.
Ma'am?
Gun control. It's all very important issues, but I'm sure what's on everyone's mind, the #1 issue for Jews today is anti-Semitism and Israel surviving. That is probably everybody's, I would think, most people's top priority. And with that being said, I understand you voted against the most recent bill for the anti-Semitism bill. There were 320 votes for yes and 90 no, and you abstained from voting.
I wasn't there. I was out campaigning. I missed the vote completely. And we put a note in the record. We would have voted yes on that bill, but we were not in the camp. We were not there in the chamber. So we did not abstain. We were in the chamber. Yeah, but I'm very familiar with that. Everything anti-Semitism, I mean, it affects my family, affects your family. The numbers are incomprehensible. And we all got to stand together, shout it to the rooftops. I've done that my entire time and will always continue to do that.
Ma'am? Well, I would like to move on to, want to move on to next.
I had a question.
Okay.
It seems to me, whether it's Hamas, the Houthis, Hezbollah, all of that is backed by Iran. It seems to me that these are the tentacles, but the head that's creating all of the issues in the Middle East, it seems to me, are Iran. What steps are we taking to go after the main culprits that causing all of these issues in the Middle East and presenting an issue to not only to Israel, but to the Saudis, to the whole Middle East, behind the Houthis that are creating the problems in the Red Sea. It's all Iran that's behind us. What are we doing against Iran?
Right now, we're not doing anything against Iran. As you all know, we all know, it's the great the great Satan that's behind all of that. Every one of those groups you mentioned, they're the one funding all of that. You know, we need to take tougher and tougher sanctions. The sanctions allowing India to buy some of this, you know, all the oil and things like that. You know, those are big problems. I mean, we've got to stand together and be 100% arm in arm and not make compromises on anything we can do to stop the Iranian aggressiveness, which is the biggest problem we have right now. Is Iran behind everything, and we're not making the steps.
Let's move.
I don't have a solution on that. I'm working on things I can work on, which is addiction, mental health, et cetera. You have 18 staffers in Congress, which means I have 4 legislative assistants. You can't do everything. If you do everything, you do nothing.
So we're going to ask this woman to ask her question, you ma'am, and then we're going to move around to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity. So the next question will come from this section. So ready your questions, ready your questions, ready your questions.
Tobacco and alcohol are huge sources of addiction. Okay, so that's one of my major concerns. My other major concern is the incidence of guns in this country. So every day I'm reading in the newspaper, innocent people being shot with guns. What will you do about these 2 major issues?
Yeah, tobacco is certainly taking a huge toll of our healthcare costs. We need to continue to tax. We spoke earlier, we need to be taxing all forms of tobacco, and eventually that's going to drive it down. You can't outlaw tobacco, but we need to tax tobacco. So you could outlaw, but it's not going to happen. So we have to work with the realities that exist, and it will not be outlawed because it's just, I don't think it's going to happen in a million years. But we have to tax it, and that's where we got to go. On the gun issue, we lost 28,000 people last year to suicide by gun. That's an unbelievable number. So we have got to do a lot of things, and it's the money. It's the special interest money. It's the NRA. The NRA's chokehold on so many legislators on the Republican side of the aisle that prevents things like trigger locks, where a trigger would work off your fingerprint. Those type of technologies can be done. But if you had a gun, your child in a moment of despair, of despondency, couldn't take their own life impulsivity because the gun would have a trigger lock. So we need to do a lot of things in the gun area, and we need to move the ball to the 10-yard line, the 20-yard line. The mass weapons, the AK, they need to be outlawed completely. I voted to outlaw that. We'll continue to vote to outlaw that, but it won't pass right away. We're going to slowly build a coalition. I'm with you, but we don't have the votes to do that. So we got to keep electing folks that believe in that. I believe in that on those type of guns. Folks can hunt, that's fine.
Ma'am, we have to move on to the next person. Ma'am, we have to move on to the next person. Leonard?
Would you tell us why you feel you're in a better position than your principal opponent to beat Larry Hogan and keep the Senate Democratic?
Yeah. I mean, the polls were clear. My opponent loses time and time again. Every single poll, the Larry Hogan. The polling shows we believe we can beat Larry Hogan. I've won in a Republican district. My district is Republican +1. Washington County, Allegheny County, Garrett County, totally Republican. Frederick, it's on the border. And we have a little bit of Montgomery, which is Democrat. So my district is Republican +1%. So every time there's election, I would lose. But I won by 10, which means I held every Democrat, and I got 11% of independents and Republicans. If I held every Democrat in the state and got 11% of independents Republicans, I'd win this election against Hogan 75-25, make up a number. It'd be a landslide, total landslide. I appeal across the board. I'm the 4th most bipartisan member of Congress, number 4. I'm ranked number 1 in Maryland getting things done, 3 times more than number 2. It ain't even close. I'm at a different level. So I'm effective. I have the resources. I've got the track record. And Larry Hogan needs to end his career.
What? Anybody from that section? Sir?
Yeah, okay. Earlier you said that you wanted to improve relations between Israel and the rest of the Arab world. That struck me as kind of strange, the phrase. Why is it the rest of the Arab world?
All of the Arab world.
Israel was part of the Arab world, or
The whole Arab world together, which is Israel, the 20 Arab countries, all need to begin to have a tolerance of each other, a respect for each other, and we can do that. And that's really what the Abraham Accords is about. It's about how we get people to talk to each other. If Ron and I know each other, we may not agree on everything, but we build respect, we build rapport, we build comfort level with each other. And I can respect his religion, I can respect his business, and I can respect his differences. And the Abraham Accords is starting to do that, and eventually expand that. Over 2 million people have done tourism with the Abraham Accords, so they went and visited other countries, visit Israel, visit Arab countries. They're part of the Accords. They're fostering business relationships, fostering tolerance for religious tolerance. This is the way it's called people-to-people democracy, people-to-people building.
Israeli state and an Arab country.
It's in the middle of the Arab orbit.
Next question. Sherry?
Hi, how are you stronger on Israel than Larry Hogan in concrete ways?
I don't know exactly where Larry stands and everything. I know one thing. I've been in the U.S. House of Representatives for 3 terms. I've got a 100% record with everybody. I'm a minion member of AIPAC. I'm a big supporter of Israel. I was on the Foreign Affairs Committee my first term, Middle East Subcommittee, Vice Chairman to Ted Deutsch, who led the subcommittee. Then I moved to Appropriations, which is a much more powerful committee to drive dollars. I voted every single time with Israel, and I think that's pretty important. And I think, as you heard, it's really personal to me. My family's Jewish, period. End of story. I don't think that's Larry Hogan's family, to be quite frank. I don't think it's personal to him. It's personal to me.
Somebody else, ma'am, in the back?
My name is Catherine. My mother and I both work here at the synagogue. And in my day job, you could say, I spend most of my time doing community organizing for Ukraine and for Ukraine Aid. And we actually met with your office just 2-3 weeks back with Andrew in Rayburn. And I just wanted to say thank you for how accessible your office is, how well-informed your staff are. And it was a really helpful conversation, and deeply appreciate that. And the number one question I have for you was about the Assad regime anti-normalization bill, which passed the House with your co-sponsorship and is now stuck in the Senate on the desk of our Senator Cardin. I wanted to ask if you've had any conversations with his office on this critical bill. We mentioned Iran here previously. The thing to understand about Iran is that they work through proxies, and there is no more critical proxy for Iran than the Syrian regime. If we want to stop Iran, we need to maintain and increase the sanctions on the Syrian regime. So any feedback from the Senate?
Yeah, I don't have an update on that, but I'm happy to have Aaron will get your information. We'll reach over to Senator Cardin and find out, where he's at and what his timing looks like. But thank you for that. We need to stand together. There's no question.
Somebody else in this section? Okay, we move on to this section, then we'll head back over again, please.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. So we can all hear on the internet the abuse, all the anti-Semitic actions that college students are enduring. Talia Khan, K-A-H-N, who is an MIT PhD student who testified before Congress back in December, has a really good video of where she translated the Arabic slogans that were being sung: death to Jews, death to Zionists, etc. So here's a thought experiment. Substitute African Americans, spilling on African Americans, keeping African Americans from going to classes. what would I have to believe that the Justice Department would act like that. Do we have an Attorney General? Where is he?
Yeah.
He didn't, he didn't bring insurrection charges against Trump. And that's why Jack Smith is going to fail in the Supreme Court, because he'll ask, how come you didn't do that? But where is he now in protecting Jewish students? Where is he? What will they do? And I don't want the words, I'm waiting to hear what President Biden is going to say. I don't want any of the words. Actions count. What will he do?
I don't know what he'll do. I mean, I can't speak for him. I know what we've done is we have to stand up for our students. I mean, I've got 4 children. They're all were Jewish students at one point in time. My son was back at Vanderbilt not that long ago where he attended and he didn't feel safe. And it's a real big, huge issue. I helped found the Hillel. I wrote the check at my undergraduate university, so we had a Hillel there. And I talked just recently to the Penn undergraduate Hillel group. They reached out and just to bounce ideas off of and make sure I understood what they were going through at the University of Pennsylvania. Terrific. And I've stopped all giving to the University of Pennsylvania. I'm done. I'm finished. But I'm not a lawyer, and I honestly don't know what the justice can or can't do, and I can't speak for justice. Yeah.
But let me add one thing.
We've got to make sure that the students have a right to go to class, have a right to go to their jobs. We cannot allow this free speech. Free speech is good. We all support it. The right to protest, we support. But when it infringes on others' rights to attend their educational institution, then we have to deal with that. And the university presidents have not dealt with that at all. They've ignored it. And so shame on them.
So
they're wrong.
So let me stop. Let me add. I want to just add one thing. If you really want to be able to go ahead and impact anti-Semitism on campus, then you've got to support funding for what we're pushing for was for the Title VI department, which is investigating anti-Semitism, to have more investigators so they can go to campuses. That's where the holdup is, because when you're violating Title VI, then the government can investigate. And right now we're having a political fight over a lot of people who are proclaiming they want to investigate but don't want to put resources behind it. So that's where, JCRC has been very involved in the GW issue, behind the scenes, in front of the scenes. But what we need is federal investigation. That's beyond David's ability. It's not the Attorney General. That's investigating schools that receive federal funding to see if they're in violation of the act. So it's not the Attorney General's purview. So I just want to just bring that piece of factual evidence. We have another question here, and then we'll start around.
I think you might be able to hear me without the microphone.
Yeah.
In
In the interest of time, I'm asking that since we have another 7 minutes, pose a question, and so we can get as many in as possible.
You talked about the problem with fentanyl. What's your party doing to stop the issues at the border? There's considerable amount that is caught. But if you consider what's caught, think about what's not caught and what's not being done, which has been a major issue, which nothing has been done for a number of years.
The border crisis is separate from, they're all kind of part and parcel, but in most part, the fentanyl itself is coming 95% at legal crossing points. That means where there's a point, where there's a highway, and that highway is where the fentanyl is coming through. The fentanyl is coming through, and right now, it's changed over time, but now it's in commercial vehicles driven by Americans, mostly soccer moms. So, because that's who doesn't get picked up. And they don't need much. It's so pure, it's so powerful, as the doctor mentioned earlier, literally in 2 pickup truckloads. There's 73 million people cross that border a year, 73 million. So we have 227,000 a day. So it's a needle in a haystack because it's such a little bit. We have big giant scanners that we need to deploy. We allocated 370 million for them 4 years ago. So there's government broken between Homeland and the various companies. They haven't been able to get deployed, but getting them deployed is hard too because the borders, the crossing points are right up against the border. And you need room for these cars to move through the scanners, these high-speed scanners that can see inside the car. But honestly, we spent so much time on this 6-7 years. I think the answer is do all we can at the border, do everything we can, but it is not going to be enough. We have to work on the demand side, education, prevention, teaching folks what this will do to you and helping them get help. I mean, Mexico, the government's, Obama's whole idea in Mexico is for the cartels is hugs, not bullets. So if you treat the cartel with hugs and not bullets, that means you've decided, other than a few face-saving gestures, to do nothing. And that's what they're doing, nothing. So we have to just face up to that. And what is China doing? For quite some time, nothing. Now with San Francisco, maybe that last we picked up, which I advocated for 3 years, we raised the sanction of one lab in Wuhan province. Hopefully that will then allow them to begin to cooperate again and stop the precursors from coming here. But overall, they've also done nothing but rhetoric. So it's in stopping the use here.
Okay. With the time we have time for 2 more questions. If you could ask your question and Saul, you ask your question and we'll let the Congressman answer both.
Justice reform and the environment, LGBTQ, voting rights, immigration, labor unions, affordable housing. Not one of them is about the Jews in this area or anti-Semitism. I don't want to be videoed. Is that okay?
No, it's public. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So of the 15 boxes, that's the first part of my question. Why is none of them about anti-Semitism?
I have no idea. I don't believe it or not. I don't actually build the website myself. I would love that it should be talking about anti-Semitism. I talk about it all the time, and I'll continue to talk about it all the time. And if it's not on the website, we're happy to put it on the website because it's a pretty simple one. It's not hard.
I get all these flyers from you.
Good.
None speak about anti-Semitism.
Because we need to know where the votes are, and where the votes are is anybody that knows who I am. Anybody knows who I am, knows I stand with Israel, I stand with the Jewish community, and that's that. You don't have an Israeli flag in the front of your office unless you're pretty clear where you are. And so that's not a point I need to make. I'm working on the points that I need to make, explain where I am on all these other huge issues that are killing Americans day by day that really matter to Americans.
I need to go on to the next question. Ma'am, we don't have time. So, and that has to be the final question.
Thank you. What role would the United States was
I think we've got to be there as the world leader to bring the Arab countries and get them. They've done very little, maybe nothing, to help anywhere. And that's why we talk about them stepping up. Eventually, when the conflict ends and Hamas is eliminated, at that point in time, Israel needs to help rebuild. The United States has to help rebuild. We have to lead the charge. We need to work with Europe, work with the Arab countries. But the Arab countries have to be there to step up and be counted and not just talk. They got to do something. That means write checks, billions, tens of billions of dollars of checks. They've done nothing.
Do we have time for another one or two? How many more questions do we have time for? One more?
Yeah, that's it. One
more. So I'll let you do the second part. Well, you get to choose between the two of you, but one question.
I've always voted Democrats and didn't even look at issues that it was given. Until the past few years, I lived in Montgomery County. I think that you focus on criminal justice reform, affordable housing, but those policies have gone overboard in Montgomery County. When we go to Montgomery Mall, my friends and I have to remove our jewelry. The crime rate is so high. A car was stolen on my street in Trone. The police didn't even come because they said they don't have resources. So it sounds like you're focusing on people who fighting cash bail and mandatory minimums and medical care for free trial detainees and affordable housing, but
What's the question?
it's causing people to have an uncomfortable life in Montgomery County. And when did the public schools, which were number 1, 2, and 3 in the country, are now number 48, 49, 50. People are, my friends are.
Ma'am, we need, what's your question?
She's unhappy with law enforcement in Montgomery County. I think that's it. Well, first of all, policing is basically a local issue. That's your county executive. And I know my opponent talks about how crime has dropped in her county. In actuality, it's up 41%. 41% up. So folks are concerned and fearful. I totally agree with you. And we need to support our police. I support our police all the time. Matter of fact, we did 3 bills last year to help support the police. We did a cops counseling bill. We lost an officer here in Montgomery County to PTSD, suicide, TJ Bamba. So we did a bill for cops counseling so police can get counseling that's confidential and peer-to-peer. Also benefits if someone died. So by supporting the police, they can be more effective. And also we put a bill for 120-some million so they can learn about mental illness. So we've done some things on a federal level, but overall, that stuff you need is a county issue on your county enforcement of police. The police in Montgomery County work for Montgomery County. The state police work for the state of Maryland. We have the FBI works for us, and they don't work the Montgomery Mall.
So everybody, I would like to, first of all, thank Congressman Trone for being so generous with his time, and for taking so many of our questions. I know he's got a very responsive staff, having worked with them. And if you have any questions, feel free to email them in. I'm sure you'll get a prompt answer. This is the last of our series. I thank you for attending. As we say in Judaism, may you go from strength to strength. Good luck in your future endeavors. One more round of applause, please. And the congressman needs to go to his next event, so please don't stop him for questions on the way out. Thank you very much. And oh, by the way, vote. This is going to be a very long turnout primary. Every vote now, and early voting has begun.